Let me just say first, been studying this issue quite some time. Mr. Pottinger, you were the architect of the Trump administration's China policy. I was in full agreement. In fact, your team was the one that came to me and Secretary Pompeo and National Security Advisor O'Brien regarding the CHIPS Act that we were able to pass to get off the supply chain that threatens our national security issue. But when I looked at the way Treasury works with sanctions versus on the entity approach, as you mentioned, versus the sector-based approach, it seemed to make more and more sense to me. And I had a discussion with the Undersecretary Estevez of the Bureau of Industry and Security, and he said, instead of just providing a sanction on a company and then China will turn around and call it something else the next day or take it off the books, the sanction has no effect. And they're very smart about this. So we started talking about this sector-based approach, and the key sectors are the semiconductors, AI, quantum, hypersonics, high-performance computing. And to your point, Mr. Harrell, it's not a wide, we know these are the sectors that go right into the PLA's military war machine or civil military fusion. So if we have a prohibition based on the sector, to me, that seems to be more effective than this entity-based approach that they can change overnight. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with Peter's opening remark on that very point. When I think your point was that it's much simpler, it's less confusing for American businesses, it's less resource intensive. That's not to say that I don't think that the Treasury Department should have authorities to target specific entities, but a sector-by-sector approach is just much more clear-cut. It allows for the compliance teams at various American financial institutions and investment funds to simply adjust and not to get caught in this very complex web of subsidiaries and shell companies. The Treasury Department has had the authority to target Chinese military-affiliated companies going all the way back to late 2020. President Trump signed a couple of executive orders that gave them that authority. President Biden reaffirmed with some changes his own executive order to that effect. But since then, I think only 68 companies have been added to the list of prohibited Chinese firms for American investment. And I can tell you that many orders of magnitude greater than the number 68. So
that's very good. So when you look at export controls, this committee has jurisdiction over that as well. But it seems to me that alone is not going to solve this problem. And that's dual-use technologies. I remember prosecuting the Johnny Chung case of the money was coming from China, military intelligence, China aerospace, funneled through his Hong Kong bank account to influence the presidential election. Why? Because they wanted the satellite technology, aerospace. They also wanted to become part of the WTO, and guess what? They got all of it. And that was 1997. Where are they today? So I think using both the export control laws that we have, that Mr. Meeks and I have worked on, but also the sector-based approach on capital flows going into China, that combination seems to be a powerful one, in my opinion.
I agree. And I commend the bipartisan spirit reflected today in Congressman Meeks' remarks as well.
No, I don't know if you've noticed. It's a little rare these days. But, Mr. Harrell, just one thing. Defining technologies like advanced semiconductors, AI, or quantum, we did this with AI in terms of the business community understanding what we're talking about when we talk about a sector. Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, in implementing legislation like this or the Biden administration's executive order, you're going to need a rulemaking process that is going to lay out in some detail exactly what parts of the semiconductor ecosystem we're talking about here, the most advanced end, what parts of the AI ecosystem we're talking about here, not just kind of customer service chatbots, but the high-end models that we are actually concerned about. But the thing is that we have that experience in export controls, where we've had to define a lot of different kinds of semiconductor technology. The business community understands that regime, and they will understand that regime when, with appropriate tailoring, you move it over to an investment, a complementary investment restriction regime.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Mr. Meeks.
Thank you.